Welcome into an all-new episode of Panthers on Tap. I'm Curtis Round, joined by Bryson Carbley and Ricky Rains, coming to you guys on a Thursday evening. Guys, it's good to be back. Middle of June, it's hotter than shit out here. End of June, really. What am I talking about? End of June, and it is blazing hot. We're talking triple digit, feels like temps. Obviously you guys survived, but how'd you all do it this week? It's been brutal.
Dude, it's ridiculous. And then occasionally I have to work outside, so it's not fun being out in the heat. But now I'm in the AC, drinking beer and getting ready to talk football. So the week's gotten a little better for me.
Yeah, it's always like the top of the hill, right? Is when we get to this episode, and now we just slide down. Yeah, it's miserable outside. It's terrible. But I'm also doing like my prep work for going on vacation and going to the beach, where I'm also just going to be in the sun way more than I usually like to be. So I'm like training myself right now, right? And I'm glad that we're doing these episodes because it also gives me a little R&D opportunity to try out some beer or some beach beers, and really get my feet underneath me so I nail it next week.
Where are you going to the beach? Or you do not want to disclose?
No, yeah. I'm going down to Isle of Palms this first time. And then where's the second beach that I'm going to? Somewhere in Carolina Beach, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, a couple different trips, different sides of the family.
Nice.
Wherever the missus tells me to go, that's where I go.
Is that for the 4th?
Right after we leave on the 5th. So I'll be around for the 4th and have a very docile 4th, so that I'm not hungover as shit driving down to the beach.
Well, let's talk about what we're drinking tonight. Bryson, what do you got for us?
Dude, I picked up like the most random beer. I just saw it on the shelf. I have another one of those Aloha Surfer ones that I had, I think, last week or the week prior because it was so good and I wanted it again. But this one is called Boddington's Pub Ale. It's imported from Great Britain. It looks like it's pretty popular over there. It's smooth and creamy. I couldn't really find any more like detail on it, like what kind of beer it is. I mean, it's a pub ale. It's pretty good. I would like call it similar to a Guinness. It's got like the little ball in there too, like Guinnesses have. But yeah, it's not bad.
Ricky?
I've had that before. I think when I had it the first time that I had it, I was like, that'll probably be the last Boddington pub ale that I have. Like, don't get me wrong, I drank it. Like, I wasn't like mean to it or anything, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah. That'll be the last.
Yeah. So like I said, I've been doing a little R&D, trying to get myself pro ready for the beach. So this first beer that I have tonight, this is a fun one just because of the name alone. It's called Konnichiwa Beaches. And this is a rice lager with mango and marshmallow. 5%. It is from Westbrook. Yeah, it's cool, man. It's a fun little thing, dude. It's 5%.
You love your marshmallow
dude,
beers.
I don't, though. That's the weird thing. I'm not even like big on that kind of thing, or like the lactose sugar and shit that they put in some of these beers. It's not even my jam. But the mango and the rice lager and the name caught me on this one.
The name caught me.
And it's from Westbrook Brewery, which is down there in, I believe, Pleasant, South Carolina. So they do like a key lime pie goza as well. If you ever run across that, it's fantastic. But I did get another one too. This is called Catching Bombs. This is a hazy IPA, and you can see it's got a football skin on it. This is from Sloop Brewery. Dope. This is a 6.5% IPA. All the citrusy, juicy flavor of Strata hops, and this is from Hampton, New Hampshire.
Man, you always get the coolest naming beers and the coolest looking cans. I swear to God.
I didn't even tell you the other one, but this is the R&D again. This is called Peach Body. So it's a little peach that's on the beach. It's a little fruited wheat ale. 4.1%. Fun little thing. It's my backup. I'm not planning on having.
Hey, that looks like the Gaffney peach. I love it.
Yeah, something that we won't see anymore, right?
I actually saw it yesterday. I was in Greenville, so.
I see Michael Cuddy in the chat, by the way. Cuddy,
yes.
Your
knows.
It's on the way, man. It is on the way.
Oh, see, you're as bad as I am.
No, it's in the mail already. It'll be there Saturday, I believe.
By the way, update. Nate did receive the shirt. We like overnight shipped it. I was like, we got to send this to him. So he got it like the next day. So we appreciate everyone for tuning in. Yeah, chat. I'm drinking Busch Light Apple. I don't need to get into it again, but
This fucking apple beer again, huh?
Joshua Andrews is in here. He's on X and he's on YouTube. Look at this guy. He is
Love
just
that. What's
ready
up,
to
Joshua?
go.
You weren't shamed enough last week to not bring that Busch apple back here. I feel like you got some hell from that one, didn't you?
No, it's good. I don't care. I don't care at all. We got a good one for you guys tonight. We're continuing our grades for the position rooms as we get closer to training camp. So this week we're talking wide receivers and tight ends, and we're going to also get into a couple things that have popped up over the last couple days since we've talked. And we're going to start actually first with something a good friend of ours, great ad on Twitter, by the way, Jared Feinberg. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. Ricky, help me if I'm not.
Yep.
I hope I am. But yeah, he does stuff for, I believe, Cat Crave.
No, he's not with Cat Crave anymore.
He's Panthers Wire. I'm sorry, Panthers Wire.
Panthers
So
Wire and Panthers on SI as well.
And then he also does stuff for the Jaguars. So he does a lot.
Yep.
And he had put out an article for his top 10 current players. And I'm going to read that here for you guys quickly, and then we're going to get to ours. So he took rookies out of it, no rookies at all. And he had his list as number 10 is Tershawn Wharton, and then 9, Ike Ekwonu, Trayvon Merrig at 8, Damian Lewis 7, Taylor Moton 6, Bryce Young 5, Chuba Hubbard 4, Robert Hunt 3, J.C. Horn 2, and Derek Brown 1. So we decided to kind of do our own top 10 based off of Jared's fine list that kind of blew up on Twitter, and a lot of people were chiming in on their own top 10. So we thought we'd jump in on that train. So Ricky, why don't you kick us off? Top 10 players on the current roster. Ricky and I kind of we didn't include the rookies. You guys will see Bryson's list. He did include one of them, but nonetheless, let's start with Ricky here.
Yeah, so hold on, that's not the right thing. Where's the list? There we go. There's the list. I didn't know rookies, but I do have like a slight caveat about it, though, is that I think that by the end of the season and perhaps in season, I'm willing to bet that a rookie or two could creep their way into this top 10 list, because I do think that we have that good of a rookie class that will be an impact rookie class in their first season. But so I got Derek Brown and J.C. Horn 1 and 2. What's interesting about that, because I think that most people would have them 1 and 2, right? Like those are your very easy, identifiable best players on this roster. But I had a hard time deciding which one I actually wanted to put at 1, to be completely honest. I think that J.C. Horn is a really good football player, not just quarterback. And I think that if with the scheme adjustments, having Trayvon Merrig in there, that if they are able to use him a little bit more as that blitzer, right? Like getting after the quarterback a little bit more, if they let him roam, if he gets to play a little bit of nickel or something, I think JC could be in for a really big year. And I'm curious to see what Derek Brown comes back at. Percentage-wise, his conditioning, is he going to play, the full allotment that we're used to seeing Derek Brown play? But when Derek Brown is healthy, man, he is a top 5 to 6 defensive tackle in the NFL. So he took my number 1 spot, JC at number 2. I got Chuba Hubbard at 3, man. And really, for me, what it came down to is you look at last year, and even the year before that, who was the best offensive player on our team? Who is the most consistent? Who is the most reliable? Who is the hardest working? Who is the most productive? And for me, man, unequivocally, that's Chuba Hubbard. And I think that he gets overlooked a little bit sometimes. I think that if he were on the Eagles, right, we saw Saquon Barkley, and I'm not saying that Chuba is Saquon, but if he played behind an offensive line like that and with a dynamic offense with the wide receivers they have and the run game threat of Jalen Hurts, I think he'd have put up massive numbers there too. I got Bryce Young at 4. That was maybe what to me was probably my biggest surprise, was how high I ended up being on Bryce Young again. I just got a feeling, man, he is going to really show out this season. And watching him finish last year, this dude is wildly talented, man. And he just has not had a lot of weapons to throw to. I think the T-Mac solves a little bit of that. I expect Xavier Legette to be better in his second year. I also think that Jalen Coker is just going to make some noise. And we still got Adam Thielen, who I'll talk about. Robert Hunt is my first offensive lineman on the list at number 5. It was kind of choice between Robert Hunt and Taylor Moton for me. I really like Taylor Moton, but Taylor Moton isn't so much of a tone setter. I don't think that what he does, and I'm not trying to give him grief because of the fact that he's not more physically imposing and violent with the way that he plays the position. But Robert Hunt, I think, changed the dynamic of the entire offensive line. He may not even have been the best interior offensive lineman every single game last year because Damian Lewis, who's on my list as well, had a great year. But Robert Hunt has been this good for 3 or 4 years. So when I look at it, I'm not just judging off of who had the best year last year, right? Who is the best player coming in? And I think Robert Hunt's going to do much better as a pass blocker. I think having that continuity, having a center continuity could go a long way there too. Because remember, there was a little bit of up and down there with Corbett and then going into Mays. We'll see who wins that job, but that person should hold that job as long as they're healthy. Trayvon Merrick, the newcomer, number 6, I think he's dynamic, man. And I think that he is going to change the way that our defense looks. I think he's going to create turnovers. I think that he is going to create pressure. And those are things that we just have not seen from a Carolina Panthers defense, and I'm excited about his addition. Taylor Moton, the steady vet right there at number 7. I know that he's kind of not necessarily declining in play, but declining in age and a little bit of worries about his health, right? He finally missed a game. You're concerned about his knee. Is it going to hold up for the whole season? He's still really damn good at playing football, and he's a reliable right tackle. So I got to have him there in my top 10. Adam Thielen, man. How do you not have Adam Thielen? He's the only wide receiver that has produced on this roster with Bryce Young, with Andy Dalton. Now, I hope that he can stay healthy. And sure, it would be cool, man, if you could tie some jetpacks to his cleats and give him a little bit of speed. But he doesn't need it. He's making people miss. He's getting open. He's catching touchdowns. He's catching first downs. Bryce Young is looking for him. They got a great rapport. He's going to stay on there for me. Damian Lewis, who I talked about. I think he had his best season as a pro last year, guys. I think Damian Lewis literally had his best NFL season in his first year here in Carolina. And I think that's what's so endearing about those interior offensive linemen that we added. Not only did they come in and do exactly what they were supposed to, they got all this money, but they probably played, at least Damian Lewis probably played the best football he's played in a brand new situation with an underperforming team. I love that because now when you get the confidence of the entire locker room, the confidence of the entire roster, the offense having familiarity, watch what these guys do together feeling good about their prospects playing football. And then
Ricky,
I rounded – yeah.
Ricky, real quick, can you remember the last time that you could say that a free agent came in and had their best season of their NFL career with the Carolina Panthers?
Absolutely not. You know what you normally hear is that when a Carolina Panther leaves in free agency, they had their best career year at their new team.
Exactly.
It was this weird, bizarro, inverse world, man, and it was wild. And to your point there again, Bryson, when's the last time that I had all of these offensive linemen in a top 10 list for the Carolina Panthers? Because to round mine out, I got Ike Ekwonu there at 10, man. I think that Icky had a really quietly good year. I think that he made some serious progress. We know he's a dominant run blocker, man. Dominant. This is one of the top 5 best run blocking tackles in the league, I think. I think if he can, I don't even know that that's that bold, man. Is it honestly, dude, this dude is a mover, man. He can grade space. He could get people out of there, but he can also hold his own. He's so athletic that he could get to his landmarks, man. And that's such a key piece on some of these zone runs, getting him to where he's supposed to be in the right amount of time. He's so good at it, man. Now, what I noticed the positivity or the progression from him as a pass blocker, I think that his brain and his body are starting to move in the same unison. I think they're working together. I don't think he's doing as much guessing. I saw less lunging. Speed can still give him some fits, but there are multiple ways to win a rep. I see a lot of these videos, and you know what? We talk about Jared Feinberg, who is kind of our inspiration for these lists here. I was having a conversation with him, man, the other day about Icky. There are so many different ways to win reps, and people think that it's all about a stonewall rep where you win instantly and you hold your guy up or you put him down on the ground. That's not it, man. Icky did a great job of learning that there are secondary ways to win. If you get beat initially, that doesn't mean you have to lose. You just have to figure out how to correct and how to get back to where you're supposed to. And he did that. He had a really good awareness and knowledge of how to have a pass protection plan. We talk a lot about pass rush plan. There's a plan for protection too, man. And you have to know what to do on counters when you face a certain attack. And I think Icky's starting to finally get that. Another year with Joe Gilbert, another year learning all of these things together. I think it's to the moon for Icky. I think he takes another step, and I'll be very happy to see that. My dark horse here that didn't make it, guys, was going to be Jalen Coker, because I think when he's on the field, I think he's a top 10 player on this team as well.
Before we go to Bryson's list, and before we actually talk about your list quick, I just want to get to some of these chats. Zachary Hernandez, always with the super chats. Coming in here, the crew survived the heat wave. Yes, we did. Been brutal this week working outside. My expectations are high for the wide receiver room, and Sanders will double his receptions, yards, and have close to 8 touchdowns. I love hearing that. That's beautiful. Zach. Andrew Silva, longtime Spotify listener, first-time live listener. Andrew, we appreciate you coming in here. Y'all do the Lord's work out there for us, out of the state fans. Appreciate all the content. We appreciate you, Andrew. Thank you for tuning in tonight. And as I mentioned, I forgot to talk about the super chat. Do not be shy on that. We appreciate it. It's that little money icon on YouTube in the chat there. And we will, of course, toast you, and we'll answer any questions you guys have. And we are closing in. I just looked before we started. We're at 979 on the subscribers, so we're 21 away from 1,000. We are very, very close. So tell a friend, hit that subscribe button. We would appreciate it. Bryson,
I love that first-time live listener. Sorry to interrupt before you get to Bryson, but I love it when people say like it's their first time catching a live show, because I know when I watch podcasts or like a show or of any kind, man, being involved in the actual live and being in the comment section and like speaking through it and being a part of the show is so much more enjoyable. Don't get me wrong, man. I love listening to it on my own free time, but when I can catch like people that I really enjoy, it is awesome. So Andrew Silva, man, thank you for being in here tonight.
Bryson, before you jump to your list, anything surprise or jump out to you from Rickie's list, or it's pretty status quo?
Yeah, I mean, Ricky made a comment. I don't know how you can't have Adam Thielen on their top 10, and we'll get to my list. And
about to find out, huh?
Unfortunately, he's not on my top 10. I can completely understand as to why he's on the top 10 when you talk about consistency and just that rapport he has with Bryce Young, or as Curtis likes to say, rapport with Bryce Young. But,
he's got a good Ian going on with him.
Ian's on my mind.
He's unfortunately not on my top 10.
Ricky, do I got to get to his list here? I'm sorry. I thought, here we go. All right, Bryson, fire away.
Either one of us could do it. We're both capable adults.
Yeah, I don't have access to that stuff, so unfortunately I can't. Same top 2 as Ricky here. I did include a rookie. I didn't follow the rules, I guess, but I feel like he deserves to make the list, even though he hasn't played it down in the NFL, just based off of my own personal belief in him. So top 1 and 2, same as Ricky, Derek Brown and JC Horn. I too struggled in what order I was going to put them in, Ricky. So that wasn't just you.
Cool. I like to hear that.
I do think Derek Brown is probably a higher graded player at his position than JC Horn is at this point. But if JC Horn puts together another season like he did last year, then we're going to be talking about him as a top 2, 3, 4 corner in this league. Just has to prove that he's going to be available and on the field. Of course, Derek Brown, you mentioned it, man. This team missed him dearly last year, not only from his play on the field, but his leadership in the locker room. He's getting him back is like the best free agent signing you can have. Even though he wasn't a free agent, but like just bringing him back into the lineup for that defense is going to do wonders and hopefully improve it a lot from last season. At 3, I have Bryce Young. I'm high on him too, just like Ricky. I believe that he is going to take that step this season. We saw it at the end of last year, the progress that he's made. And, I mentioned a couple weeks ago, if he can get through what he went through last season, I mean, the sky is the limit for Bryce Young, and only adding weapons and that continued tutelage of the head coach and the offensive line and just everybody building rapport together. I think it's just the sky's the limit for Bryce Young. So him at 3 for me. Robert Hunt at 4. I do think he's one of the best guards in the NFL. Ricky mentioned some of the other reasoning being that he sets the tone on the offensive line. A great locker room dude. I mean, from all that we can see as fans with the Panthers social media, including him in a lot of things, seems like just a funny dude and just someone that likes to be involved with the fan base and in other players' lives. So not only an elite guard, but a really good dude as well. Then Chuba, I'm all on record about how hard I was on him and not wanting him on my team. And now he's one of the best offensive players on this team without a doubt. Last season, just leaving it all on the field every game. This dude, like, what game was it? I can't remember exactly. The one where he fumbled in overtime and, just was so down on himself, and then like comes out the next week and just has like a crazy game. Like, this dude wants to win so bad, and like you can see it in his dedication, staying after practices on the jugs machine, like being the last one to leave the field. Like, he just wants to get better day after day, and I think last season showed that, and I can only hope that it's going to continue to do that, year in and year out. Then the newcomer Trayvon Merrick, I do think that he adds something to that safety room we haven't had in a very long time. Consistency, ability to play the run, ability to play the pass. I think he's versatile in both of those areas, and I do think that he is going to bring a lot to that secondary unit. Opposite of or behind J.C. Horn, and then with Mike Jackson back there, and then the question mark maybe beside of him, but they may bring in someone. It may be Damani Richardson. We don't know at this point, but I think Merrick is going to hold his own. Then I have Damian Lewis, the other guard. I wholeheartedly agree with Ricky. I think that he had one of his best seasons in the NFL last year, consistently. Another dude that plays with like an attitude. He is not someone I would want to line up against and try to sack his quarterback. He is just nasty on that offensive line and helps set that tone with Robert Hunt. And then for me, just the consistency with Taylor Moton. He is declining in age, but year in and year out, I mean, he's been here through the bad times and hopefully the good times in this season and forward. He's just been consistent. We haven't had a question at right tackle in a very long time because of that man at number 8, and I'm appreciative of that. And his play really hasn't fallen off. It's really just can he continue to stay healthy and stay on the field. And then I had to put my guy in here, man, Josey Jewell. I know Ricky's probably like throwing up over there, but
I just want to know, do you believe it, or is it I got to do it for my guy? I got to put on, I got to show up, or do you believe it? I got to know.
He believes it. Don't let him.
I believe it. I really do. I think last season, just hear me out. Like last season when he wasn't on the field, and albeit the defense was missing a lot of players when he wasn't on the field, not to include him or to include him. But there was a clear difference. The way the defense operated, the juice on that defense when Josey Jewell wasn't on the field versus when he was. So I think that he brings that, like, not saying he's Frankie Louvu, but that Frankie Louvu energy to a linebacking room that needs it desperately. And he's clearly the best linebacker on this team. And I think that hopefully with another year under his belt, I know he's previously played under Evero, but another year under his belt in this locker room, under Evero's system again, I think hopefully his play continues to improve and he can stay healthy and stay on the field. So I think just from an energy aspect, he deserves some respect. And I do like him a lot. So I put him there at 9.
Once you get done with your Ted McMillan, let's come back and talk about Josey together.
Yeah, I'm curious.
And then, of course, at 10, my boy, I broke the rules. I threw him in here. He hasn't played a down in the NFL, but he's going to be that dude. He is the guy for Carolina. Drafted top 10 this year. He's going to make a difference on the field. He's going to be Bryce Young's go-to. He's going to make plays that fans are just going to, like, their jaw's going to drop because this is the kind of talent that he is, the kind of talent that he has. So I fully expect him to move way up this list probably by the end of the year. I think that we finally have a true number 1 wide receiver in Carolina again for I don't know how long that we haven't had one, but T-Mac is going to move up this list.
Just shout out Charlie quick before we get to the Josey Jewell stuff. Listen to the pod every day. Love it, Charlie. Love everyone tuning in. We appreciate it. Again, subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't. Ricky, fire away with Josey Jewell.
So I'm not mad at the inclusion because I also I agree with you that the defense was flatter when Josey was not on the field. And for me, I think that I look at it in twofold, Bryson. I look at it as it was because we were asking Trevin Wallace, or a 3rd-round rookie who was not ready, to be the green dot linebacker and communicate that defense to the rest of those players. And I think that was a troublesome situation last season. But I also think that Josey does have juice. I don't disagree that he's got a little bit of energy to him. What I wanted to ask you, Bryson, this is what I was like when I was going through these players, right? If we end this season and Josie Jewell is still our best linebacker and he has the same type of season that he had last season, right? I'm not talking about taking another step, but if he is the best out of him, Trevin Wallace, and Christian Roseboom, is that a good thing?
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, he is going to be the best out of those three because there's not
a good thing
there's not that much competition behind him, unfortunately.
Wow. Why do you hate Trevin Wallace? You remember when you guys always say I hate Shaw Smith-Wade? Why do you hate Trevin Wallace, man?
I don't hate him. I just think he needs a couple more seasons. I mean, we saw his lack of not ability, but just he needs to be comfortable in this, extensive, comprehensive scheme. And I think Trevor Wallace has traits to be a good linebacker in the NFL, but I just think he needs more than one season to really start making that difference. But this linebacking room is not the best. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say, if we drafted a linebacker in the first round this year, would Josie Jewell be the best linebacker on this team? No. But if Frankie Luvu was still on the team, would Josie Jewell be the best linebacker on this team? No. But he is the best linebacker on this team. And I do think that not only his ability on the field, which isn't perfect, right? He's not great in coverage. He could get stuck behind offensive linemen in the run game sometimes. But I think for a defense that's lacking at the linebacker position, when he's on the field, he makes a difference more than anyone else in that room. So
I like it, man.
I thought he was talking back his statement there for a second, taking shots at Josie. But I want to say something quick on this conversation. I was pleasantly surprised, I will say that, with Josie Jewell's play this past year. However, a big however, him being the best linebacker in the room is just not saying much right now. And you kind of made that point. I think Trevin Wallace is a work in progress, played way too early last year. And then we got Roseboom, who was a special teams ace and kind of had a bunch of tackles last year. I don't know if he can replicate that. So this room, I think, is, and we'll talk about it in a couple of weeks, is pretty damn thin, honestly.
I feel like Josie is a good football player. Like, it's not that I want you to think that, like, I dislike him entirely, Bryson, because that's definitely not how I feel about him. I feel like I would be much more comfortable and confident about our defense if he was our second best linebacker. And because I don't think that Josie Jewell, and this is no offense to him, but I don't think that he has a alpha athleticism or an alpha mentality as a linebacker. And I think that when you talk about, and I'm not one of those people that throws around like, oh, alpha, you got to be an alpha. Sometimes that's such a stupid, overblown, macho bullshit thing to say, in my opinion. But there is a mindset for that position, in my opinion, that when you see the greats, right, they have this, I know what's going to happen and I know how to wreck it. Like, they have that mentality. I don't think Josie has that. I think Josie is like, hey, man, I'm a fundamentally sound guy and I can get to where I'm supposed to be in a reasonable amount of time, right? Like, he's a very good four-door sedan with good safety ratings, right? But I want a fucking Maserati with a steel toe on the front of it, right? Like, I want speed everywhere and I want it to break doors. Like, that's what I'm looking for, you know?
Your fucking analogies. Sure. I love it.
He's a Tim Duncan, and you want like a Kobe Bryant at the position.
Did you just call Josie Jewell Tim Duncan, one of the greatest players to ever play? I think Josie Jewell is like Al Jefferson. He can put you in a clown suit down low in the paint. He's got good feet. He's got good fundamentals. But who remembers Al Jefferson?
Charlotte Hornets fans.
Yeah, but only because we have no other choice. Like, it's between him and Sean Mays for our best big man, probably.
Well, the reason I went with Tim Duncan was the fundamentally sound part. You know,
I hear you, and that makes sense. Yeah,
he's the first player that comes to mind. You know, he's not going to wow you athletically, but he's going to spin on you and bank it off the glass down low and do it every single time, and then not talk shit.
Yeah, I'm out on basketball references. I'm sorry, y'all. All right, let's go to my top 10. I ain't going to spend as much time because you guys heard half this shit already. So,
what up,
Derek Brown, I didn't really dabble. I didn't really have trouble with this one, to be honest with you guys. I thought Derek Brown is the sole number one best player on this team. J.C. Horn second. Even with the injury, I just think we saw last year the impact Derek Brown has when he's out. So that was it for me. I was honestly surprised by your guys' Robert Hunt and where you put him. Based off of the season he had last year at that guard position across the league, had I would say, arguably maybe his best year, made the Pro Bowl. And you guys, I think, did Bryson had him 4, and Ricky, did you have him 5? Did I have that
I
right?
believe so. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
So wait,
arguably,
you
I know.
think it's crazy that we had him at 4 and 5?
Well, yeah, I think it was a disservice to him. He made the Pro Bowl and was outstanding at his position, and honestly had one of the biggest impacts on this offense
You think
over
he had a
Bryce
better
Young,
season? You think he had a better season than Damian Lewis?
And over Chuba Hubbard.
Oof.
Absolutely.
Oof.
And I think you had both of those guys over him. So
I sure did.
So yeah, I think Robert Hunt deserves the 3, and I think it's disservice to him. Taylor Moton, this one I know I'm going to probably get shit for, but I just think this guy has been a rock on that right side for as long as I can remember, and has just been consistent across the board. I get the health concerns, and he's taking days off and gets all these vet days, but I still think he's a really good right tackle in the NFL, and even when he is out, I still think there's an impact on that offensive line, even in some of the games last year when he was, replaced when he was injured, I think by Yoshi and some of the other guys that replaced him. So I've always
Yoshi?
been a big Taylor Moton guy. So Bryce Young is 5 for me. I think if I had a projection, if this was like a top 10 projection, I'd probably put Bryce Young higher because I think he's going to have a hell of a season. But just based off of last year and where he is at currently, I put him at 5. I know you guys had him a little bit higher, but I would have probably put him 4 as the highest out of went if I was going back and forth on that. Chuba at 6. I thought about putting him at 4 and then Bryce and then Taylor. I do think Chuba had a really good season. I do think it was also in part because of the offensive line and how well they played. So that doesn't slight him. I think he still had a hell of a season, and I really like him as a player. So that's kind of where I put him at 6. Like you guys, Bryson didn't have him there. I don't know how you can't put Adam Thielen in the top 10. Like he needs to be in there. I'm sorry. I don't care if you think he's old and this is his last year in the NFL. He is one of the best players on the Panthers roster, whether you like him or not. I know people are going to say he should be cut and let these young guys go, but he is old reliable. If you listen to what Cooper DeJean or whatever the fuck you want to pronounce, since we're all going to make fun of everything I say tonight, what he said when he went against Adam Thielen was he was one of the hardest players I went against. So I think that just speaks volumes to the impact Adam Thielen has on defenses. So I had a hard time putting him any lower in this ranking. Merrick, you guys talked about it. I think he's one hell of a safety, and I think Carolina is one of their best free agent signings of this offseason, and I think he's going to have a huge impact, and he's going to be a chess piece. I think they're going to move him all around, to be totally honest with you guys, and going to give Evero, almost like a Joker piece to this defense that I think is missing. So I think he's going to have a pretty damn big year for them. Damian Lewis, he did have a really solid year. You're right. He probably did have his best year statistically. And my biggest concern going into this past year was, could he stay healthy and could he limit his penalties? And honestly, for the most part, he did. Shockingly, I'll be honest with you, I didn't expect that. Like, I thought when they signed him, I was like, okay, this is kind of like a lower tier signing based off of his history in Seattle. But he did show up. But I also think in part the offensive line as a whole was a product of that as well. So I think the offensive line helped him, the guys around him. But I also do think he is a big reason why Icky had a decent year. I think he played a big part in that.
I think they played a big part in each other's good years, honestly.
So Lewis at 9, and then I'll be honest with y'all, I struggled with 10. I had God, who the fuck did I have in there? I was dabbling with Wanham. I was dabbling with Ashawn Robinson because I thought he had a hell of a season last year. I really did. But I know he's getting up there in age, and I think his role is going to start to become a little bit more limited this season. So I went with Wanham just over the course of his play last year. I know he was injured, but he played 8 games, had 4 sacks. I think he had a fumble in there. If you took that across an entire season, you're looking at probably 7 to 8 sacks on the year, which is really solid. And they're expecting big things out of them this year, obviously with the Clowney cut. So I do think Wanham, off of the limited reps he got last year, I do think, for me at least, he cracked the top 10. But again, like I said, I struggle with this. I didn't even know. I was like, I don't know if there's really anyone worthy of this spot. There's so many mediocre guys on this team, and that's kind of how I felt. Like I didn't know who to slot here.
Well, and I think that the chat brings up a good name here. And Jared had him on his top 10,
yes,
right?
I wanted to talk about
Kirk
him.
Wharton.
My question to you guys is, out of all the offseason signings, besides Merrig, how the hell didn't any of us have anyone else?
Well, I was thinking one of my honorable mentions would have been Bobby Brown.
Same. Bobby was probably like my 12, honestly.
I think he's going to be a difference maker for this team, bringing him in. And then, honestly, I think if Jadeveon Clowney was still on the team, he probably would have been in my top 10 as well from the season that he had. So that kind of subtracted one, probably was able to slide in Josie Jewell on my own behalf there. And then, I think Bobby Brown could really come in and really make a difference on that defensive line.
Yeah, I love Bobby Brown. I think that he's going to be tremendous. But you know what I found really interesting when looking at Bobby Brown and contemplating adding him to my top 10, right? Because it was Icky, Turk Wharton, Bobby Brown was the 3 that I was kind of messing around with. And Jalen Coker. Those were the 4 that were competing for my top 10 positions at that number 10 spot. But the thing about Bobby Brown that's really interesting, and I don't say this to downplay him or to diminish him, because I think I'm probably higher on Bobby Brown than most people I have seen talk about Bobby Brown. I am a very big fan of his. When we signed him, he was my favorite signing on free agency outside of Trayvon Merrick. But he had something around 30 tackles last season as a run-stopping defender, right? You got to appreciate the hell out of Derek Brown going for 100 tackles the year before his injury. When you look at someone like Bobby Brown, who could be effective, and he was rotational. He didn't play as much as Derek Brown, but 100 tackles as an interior defensive lineman is bonkers. So when we were sitting here and we were talking about Derek Brown and J.C. Horn, I was like, eventually I ended up on Derek. It was because of stuff like that, man. It's these gaudy, what are you saying type of statistics. But shout out chat for talking about Turk Wharton, because I think that there's an avenue for Turk to really carve out a top 10 role here. But what he's going to have to do is he's going to have to prove that even if he still is just used in platoon usage, can he make a difference every time he's out on the field and not just in spurts? That's how I feel about DJ Wanham. I thought that DJ Wanham was effective in spurts. I didn't think that DJ Wanham was a problem every time he was on the field in run defense and as a pass rusher. That's kind of what I needed to see out of someone to make that top 10, is I wanted consistency, and I wanted I know each game I'm going to get a really quality football player. Not that Turk and DJ aren't quality football players, but you want to see them excel. You want to see them really open it up, right? So that's where I was with that. But yeah, I think Jalen Coker also, man, that's got a conversation that's crazy. And we can get into that because we're talking about the receivers tonight. So we can talk about that tonight. But the fact that he was closer to me for my top 10 than Xavier Legette, it hurt my feelings a little bit, man, when I was thinking about that, to be honest, that our first round pick didn't cross my mind the way that our undrafted free agent who played even less games. But when he's out there, man, Jalen Coker has a chance to really make some shine this year, I think.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I was kind of saddened that Legette wasn't in the conversation for me either. To be honest with you, I'm like, damn, he's a first round, and you think at this moment he would be at that point. Wharton is just not there for me yet. That was one of the signings I thought they overpaid a ton on, And I think he has a lot to prove, and I'm kind of waiting to see with him. That's just my opinion on him. I think he was a product of his environment a lot, and I want to see what he can do. And he will have big help if Derek Brown can stay healthy all year. But I have an issue with that. So
shout out Joko for this comment right here, because I was almost about to say the same thing about, like, one thing you can never question about Turk is if he hit leg day, because that dude is just gigantic on his lower half legs, man. I don't know if y'all have seen like his workout videos and like pictures of him, but his quads and shit are just like outrageous, man. It is crazy. I know that was probably that was a segment that I don't want edited and put into a clip. Don't do that, Curtis. Don't
All right, well,
let's
get into our grades here. And then there's one other thing at the end I want to talk about quickly. But let's start with our wide receiver room here. Sorry, guys. The questions were kind of lame this week. This is the best I could think of, so we're just going to roll with it. But here's the grades. And
damn,
we were all the same.
All of us?
Yeah, I
hate that.
Struggled to put a C, and I struggled to put a B plus, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to go in between those. But yeah, B minus across the board. And then the question is, which wide receiver ends the season with the most yards? Bryson, wide receiver aficionado here. Let's go. Why the B minus? Why the B minus? And then answer the question as well.
Yeah, B minus, because I think this room has I think this group has a lot of room to grow. I think there's a lot of youth here, especially I would say at the top end of the room. When you talk about guys like T-Mac and Xavier Legette and Coker, there's some veteran guys too. Renfro, I think, is making the team, and of course Adam Thielen. I think it's a largely unproven group, especially when you're talking about Legette and then T-Mac, who hasn't played a down on the field. So I don't think that their ability or their ceiling is B minus. I just think right now that's where they're at, and I think they could get to a B plus or like an A minus by the end of the year if everything comes together. But right now, I couldn't go much higher than that. I was also on the line of teetering to like a C plus at this point in time, because it's just I think overall, like you just look at the field of work that's been done. Thielen's been consistent. Coker had a really good year. I believe T-Mac is going to be magnificent and a difference maker, but nothing's ever guaranteed, right? And injuries happen. I think B minus right now was comfortable for me, and I do believe that they can get to an A by the end of the year.
I think you slighted your wide receivers for having T-Mac in your top 10. I would have thought at least a B plus, but that's just me. Ricky?
I'm with Bryson on, I felt a C plus was probably more appropriate for what has been earned from this cast. Because I think the only B player, the only B proven player is Adam Thielen. I think that Jalen Coker, B minus. I want to see more involvement. I want to see more volume to see how he handles that. But he's a really good player, so I give him that B minus on his rookie season. But like Xavier Legette, there's nothing more than average that we've seen production-wise. T-Mac, he's a rookie, and it's just something that like I can't sit there and say that I'm going to put undoubted trust in a rookie without seeing something on an NFL field. It's tough for me to do that. I think he has the most potential to reach the highest grade on this team. Then you talk about, Hunter Renfrow, is he going to make the roster? Maybe. David Moore is he's a solid. I think that David Moore sometimes gets a little bit of hate that's unnecessary, because I think that he's solid. He's a wide receiver 5 that we were asking to play wide receiver 2 and 3 at times last season. That's the problem, dude. We've done that so many times with so many different positions and players that we are asking role reserve players to play starter positions. And then we get very judgy about them not being dominant 1s and 2s. Well, they don't think they're ones and twos. Like, they know that they're doing something else. That's why he's a core 4 special teams player, right? You don't see Jamar Chase on kickoffs running down as a gunner, right? You don't see any of that. He's not on coverage teams because he's a 1. That dude is a wide receiver 1. You're not going to see T-Mac doing that stuff. You didn't see Xavier Legette do it. But so when we have these other guys have to play, Jimmy Horn Jr. is a rookie. I love his tantalizing skill set and the speed. That's a dynamic that we have not had, and I love the idea of it. He's nursing an injury right now. Jalen Coker has nursed injuries. Xavier Legette has nursed injuries. Adam Thielen missed games. Like, this wide receiver room has to stay healthy. You remember what we always talked about with J.C. Horn? He's talented. He's a good football player. He needs to stay on the field, and he needs to put together 15, 16, 17 games for us to be able to say he's terrific, right? That he's an A player and that he's worthy of a 5th-year extension, a contract, whatever the situation was, right? That's how I feel about some of these receivers, man. I got to see it in continued success before I just go off the ledge. But the B- is out of respect for the fact that Adam Thielen's a damn good receiver who's produced no matter what. T-Mac, I believe in. I think that he's going to be really good. I think Xavier Legette is going to thrive in a complementary role. I think Jalen Coker takes another step. And then I think that Jimmy Horn is like that icing on the cake. I don't know what you get out of him this year, but if you get some big explosive plays, this wide receiver room, man, was awful in yards after catch and explosives. Absolutely awful. They were worse in the league, 32nd in the league in yards after catch for receiving offense. So does T-Mac help you with that? Absolutely. Does Xavier Legette working different routes and different concepts help you with that? I think so. And then Jimmy Horn Jr. should help.
Bryson, did you answer that? You didn't answer. Did you answer the question?
I didn't.
Okay, yeah, don't answer it, Ricky, either. We'll get back to that. We'll go with the grades first.
Okay.
Just to stick to kind of what we did last week. B- for me was a little bit of projecting. I have faith in T-Mac. I think he's going to be pretty damn solid for this team. I think that's kind of what pulled me to the B-. I had a hard time with Adam Thielen, your number one wide, or a round 1 wide receiver last year. I think is going to take a step this year in Legette. And then also a top 10 pick at wide receiver. I had a hard time putting a C+ in there. That's what I struggled with. So that's kind of where I fell in line. I think Hunter Renfrow is still a great training camp story. I still need to see what he does in training camp. I know Bryson thinks he's pretty much a lock at this point, and I've seen some reporting out there that backs what he is saying. I think Zitlow of the Charlotte Observer said this week that he gave it like an 80% chance of him making the team. So I'm still kind of on that pessimistic side. I think it's a great story. I just want to see what he can do. And, can the conditioning hold up when he's actually in a game? So I'd go B- at this point. Let's start with, before we get to the question, let's just go to our super chat here because it kind of leads into it anyway. So Zachary Hernandez, always coming through on the super chat. We appreciate you. Well, cheers to you right away. $10. Thank you so much. Zach.
Cheers, brother.
He says, my prediction for this group for each category. I love this. Maybe this should have been the question. Maybe we'll tail it on the fly and change it.
Look at you. Now you're going to take Zach Shine here. Good job, Zach.
Receptions, Thielen, yards, Nalo, touchdowns, Excel, and Coker with third down conversions. Also, in my opinion, Muhsin Muhammad was the most underrated Panther. Ricky, let's start there. Let's start with Muhammad and then work our way back here. Thoughts on his comment there? Do you think he is the most underrated Panther of all time?
Ooh,
that's a bold statement.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'd have to really think for a little bit. I mean, there's a lot of guys that I could look at. I think Mike Minner is overlooked a lot. I think Mike Minner was a baller, and I think he'd be tremendous in today's NFL too. I look at guys like Chris Jenkins. I know that his longevity wasn't long here. His tenure here wasn't long, but Chris Jenkins was a monster. Mike Rucker's a legend. Everyone loves Mike Rucker, but he doesn't get talked about a whole ton, right? We've got a lot of defensive players, man, that I think are really underrated. But Moose, as far as the offense, Yeah, dude, I think that you got a really good argument there that Moose is probably one of the most underrated Panthers because he was a reliable red zone threat. He was a great possession receiver. And Zachary, I'll tell you one more thing, man. If you are, and I assume that you are, a big Moose and Muhammad fan, just keep your eyes open, man, for when we hit that subscriber thing because we might have a little something that has to do with Moose going on that day too. So, yeah, great question.
Insert eye emoji.
Yeah, that's right. The big eyes where you're looking through like the grass and stuff. Yeah. It's a great question though that he brings up with like the receptions in the different ways. I like the way he phrased that. And I think that he could run a podcast. Definitely.
All right. What is your answer though to that question? And
my answer to that question.
If you want to answer Zach's all the way you can, or you can answer the one we have. Whatever,
yeah, I'm going to answer his question all the way, man. He did the super chat. You earned it. Zach. Receptions. Yeah, I think I'm going to go Adam Thielen as well. I still think that Thielen gets peppered with targets. The only way that I could see that being a thing is if he were to get hurt. Then I think that would be T-Mac. I still think that T-Mac's going to be a volume receiver. I don't think that he's just going to be this like only use him in the red zone. I think that he's going to be involved in every level of the passing game. I think that he's going to be short, intermediate, deep type of threat. Yards. Ooh. Yeah, I guess I'm going to go T-Mac there. Although, you know what, man? It wouldn't shock me if that's Thielen as well. Like, I think that those two could be almost like head-to-head for a lot of this. Where I think the touchdowns I'm different on is I think that T-Mac is the touchdown leader. I think that T-Mac is going to put up a minimum of 7 touchdowns, I think, this season. I think that you're going to see one every other game or a couple of games where he's got 2 or 3 even where he's just feeling it and in the zone. He's one of those players, man, where he can have those games where he might put up 145 and 2 touchdowns in a game and look like he's barely trying out there because that's the kind of athlete and player that he is. XL, I'd love it if XL led the touchdowns, but I just don't see it, man. I don't see like you move him out of that X role. I don't see them looking at him in red zone. I don't see him being the big explosive play guy. And Coker with third down conversions, man, that's an awesome guess. I actually think I'm going to go T-Mac there on third down. I think Bryce is going to, dude, the more I talk about it, I'm realizing that I'm going to be stupidly high on what T-Mac is going to do this season. But it's because I think that when you look at what Bryce loves about Adam Thielen, right? He's a good route runner, obviously, but he just knows like where soft spots are. He knows how to settle. He knows where to be, when to be there, and to make himself presentable, right? Quietly presentable. Good late hands, good soft hands. He doesn't miss a lot of catches. I just think that that's going to be T-Mac as well. And I think it's going to be in a much different way, though. I think he's going to be more aggressive. And what I saw from Bryce towards the end of the year, he wanted so badly to be aggressive. Like he was not forcing anything, but he was taking what he could. If there was a window for him to make a difficult throw, he had the belief he could do it. And what T-Mac is going to give him is way more confidence that that difficult throw is an attainable throw. So I think you're going to see him start to take some chances. I think you're going to see him throw over the middle is where he does a lot of great work. T-Mac, I think, is going to be great over the middle as well. But in that red zone, man, is where we saw a lot of miscues from this offense, in my opinion, last season. And I think that Teteroa McMillan solves that to an extent and makes Bryce extremely happy in that regard.
I'm going to go next just to mix it up here a little bit. I think receptions for Thielen is pretty spot on. That's probably who I'd throw in there for that. I'm very similar with Ricky on the yards and with either it's Thielen or Nalo, to be honest with you. I think if Thielen's healthy, I could see that being the top. But if he misses any games, I think it's going to be T-Mac. Touchdowns. Yeah, I don't know how it's XL here. I struggle with that one. I would probably go Teteroa McMillan on that as well. You said what, 7 or 8 in a season?
Yeah, I think he's going to have at least 7. I think T-Mac has at least 7 this year.
Yeah, I could see that, I guess.
I mean, XL had 4 last year.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we don't think that T-Mac's going to be a bigger threat in the red zone?
It's a solid point. And then for third down, it's Thielen for me. I think Bryce is attached to Thielen. I said that all last year, and I still believe that. And he looks his way when he's in trouble. And maybe that changes with McMillan, like Ricky said, and he becomes, the big target on third down. But until I see it, I think it's Thielen. But it would be awesome if it was Coker, because that tells me that I think, he is ready to replace Adam Thielen in that role because I feel like he could be that safety blanket for Bryce.
Maybe there is a smart way of looking at that too, though, that if T-Mac starts garnering a bunch of attention, then a guy like Jalen Coker or Adam Thielen is going to have a lot of free reign on that underneath and intermediate on these third down looks because of the attention that T-Mac might get. So that's a good point too.
Bryson.
Who's your most underrated Panther of all time?
Oh, I apologize. I apologize, Hernandez. I am going to go Fozzie Whitaker.
Wow.
No, honestly,
wrong with his internet, guys.
I kind of agree with Ricky on Chris Jenkins. I think he was a stud for this team, and not a lot of folks talked about him, and he didn't get a lot of credit. I do think Muhammad, though, is a really good one too, because he even played in Chicago and played decent even there after he left Carolina. So I do think Muhammad is a solid choice. Like, I don't hate that decision at all. But for me, I think it's probably Chris Jenkins.
Okay. All right. So for receptions, yards, and touchdowns, I have the same player. I think it's going to be T-Mac. I think he's going to be involved at extremely high level, not only because of his
Bryson.
Not only because of his own ability, but because I think this Dave Canales is going to involve him, show off their new toy, their 8th overall pick. I think they're going to want to show, yeah, we made the right decision. We took the first wide receiver in the draft. We were high on him. He's going to be involved. I think he's going to lead all those categories. Third down conversions, I'm going to go Hunter Renfrow. I think he's going to be involved. Ricky's throwing up over here, but
what did you say? What did you say?
I want to be different, okay? I don't want to go Adam Thielen.
My headphones are broken. Something happened inside. What did you say?
I think Hunter Renfrow is a younger Adam Thielen. Not that Hunter Renfrow is young.
God damn it.
Overall, but Adam Thielen's getting older, right? And he's shown an ability to not be available.
Renfro's getting younger.
Yeah, and Renfro's getting younger. That's right. He's got the Benjamin Button disease. So, really, I mean, when you consider what happened and him being healthy now and not having this rare disorder, I mean, he kind of is getting younger and back on the field. But
what are you saying?
So I'm going to go Hunter Renfrow.
He's got Benjamin Button's disease right now.
I'm going to go Hunter Renfrow for third down conversions. For the most underrated Panther of all time, I think one of the ones that come to my mind is Mike Tolbert. I was a huge Tolbert fan when he was here.
Nice call.
I think he was not only like Cam Newton's personal bodyguard anytime Cam Newton got involved in anything, but being involved as a fullback, as a running back, I think he was just super fun to watch. And then like an honorable mention that I will stand on until the day that I die is Cam Newton being the most underrated Panther of all time, because I think there's a lot of this fan base that doesn't really appreciate what he did for this franchise in the city, in Charlotte and the Carolina Panthers, being an MVP, taking us to the Super Bowl. We didn't win it, unfortunately, but I think he's the greatest player to ever wear the jersey as we sit here today. And I think there's a lot of people that don't believe that. So I would say Cam Newton too.
How about Jordan Gross or Ryan Khalil as well?
Ooh, those are good. Those are good.
Yeah. I think Khalil, man, we never really looked at that center position and gave a shit, right? But then the minute that he was gone, look at what we've been trying to do almost since Ryan Khalil has been gone, and it's find a replacement, right? And Jordan Gross, I mean, I think easily he's the best offensive tackle in the history of the team, but you still just never hear about him when you talk about like the legends of the team. And I know he does like a podcast and stuff, but like it's just not spoken about very often, right? And so like when I think underrated, I just think of like not on the forefront of people's minds, where like their career and their play should be on the forefront.
I want to get to some of the chat here because we've been on this super chat for a bit, and I want to give some love to these folks too. Z Nature, they're gonna have a tough time picking out their wide receiver room. How many do you think they take into the season? Just real quickly, we don't have to say who. I think they take 6 in this room. 6 wide receivers. I think they took 7 last year and then dropped down to 6, but maybe
they were 6, I think, or 5 even on opening day.
Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna go with 6. What about y'all?
I think 6. 6 is probably where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I guess I'll say 6. I'll keep it really easy. I wouldn't be shocked if they went 7 because I think that there are depth problems at other positions. And I think that if they had to make an initial 53, I think they could say, hey, we want to keep Hunter and David Moore.
All right, let's go to a very depressing room because we had very low grades all across the board here. And I'm going to start on this one. I went with an F, and I'm basing that off of this is one of the worst tight end rooms in the NFL, personally, I think, just based off of last year and just historically over the last couple of years. We all know I'm a big fan of Ja'Tavion Sanders, and I do think he could break.
Not anymore, you're not.
Well, clearly not, but I do think he has potential to become a 500-yard tight end, and this might allude to what we talk about later with that question. But it's so unknown with this team, in this position in general. They can never figure out this room. They never have. And every year we hear it. Every year we hear, or I hear at least, it's Tommy Tremble's breakout year. And we are still sitting here, and the guy just had back surgery and is probably not going to be ready to go week 1. So
Bryson was holding up his phone finger there to tell you he's the number 1 fan.
Every year I hear, I know who he's talking about.
And it's not even you. There's many people on Twitter that say the same damn thing. It's Tommy Tremble's year. It's Tommy Tremble. We hear it all the damn time. And it reminds me of 80, that I'm not going to say his name. It was, he's going to break out. He's going to break out. And that just never happened.
Y'all are so hateful tonight.
So, and then we have a rookie in the room. And then behind that, there's really no one. I didn't want to put anyone else's pictures up here because I didn't think they're worthy enough, to be honest with you. So you have Tommy that's coming off of back surgery. You have a rookie they drafted in the 5th round in Mitchell Evans. And then you have JT Sanders, who statistically had the most yards for a Panthers tight end in the last 5-6 years. And I haven't checked 80's stats a couple years ago, so it might be a little bit is not as long as that. But anyway, nonetheless, he's had more yards in one season than Tremble has ever as a Panther in a season. So I think he has potential, but this room is just, until they prove that they become reliable, I have little faith in this room, even though I do love Ja'Tavion Sanders. I really do hope he breaks out. I think it's because he's something new. He adds a little bit of different element to this room as a catching tight end. And that's, I think, why I'm so just hoping and praying something he flourishes, because we need it. We really do need it in this room. But yeah, I'm always been down on this room. It's so disappointing because I just would love a Greg Olsen type guy, and it hasn't been there.
Yeah, I mean, this room is sick and not in a good way, right? It's like throw up sick, not like, whoa, that's sick, dude. I think there's potential here. I really do. I think if Bryce Young continues to take a step, which I wholeheartedly believe that he will, the tight ends will be involved at a higher level in the offense. It's just going to be up to them to perform when they're called upon. And I think you mentioned it, Curtis, JT Sanders this offseason. I mean, we've seen the videos. He looks good, right? Does that translate to higher level of play on the field? We'll see. But he looks like he's moving better. It looks like he's dropped some weight, and he's looking like a wide receiver almost out there. Tommy Tremble coming off surgery. I still believe that Tommy Tremble has some ability to be an effective tight end in this league. I know Curtis is probably throwing up, but I think he does. He's played with, most of his career has been with subpar quarterback play. The best quarterback he's played with is Bryce Young the last 10 weeks of last season. And of course, JT Sanders benefited from that in his first season, playing with Bryce Young at the highest level he's played at in the NFL. But I think that's the best that Tremble's had as well. And I think that, Tremble could end up with the most yards out of this group if he is healthy and stays on the field. But this is just a group that is not great right now when we're looking at it going into the season. They do have promise. I think Mitchell Evans is a little bit of a question mark. Can he be an effective tight end? We hope so. We hope he's involved in the passing game. Coming out of Notre Dame, he looked like a decent prospect, and there's just a lot of question marks. So I went D plus. I wasn't as low as Curtis with an F, but D plus I think is a fair grade for this room.
Before you go, Ricky, your grade just does not match up for me.
I know.
I'm sorry, because you are probably the hardest person in this on this show of the tight end room. Yep. And I'm probably the most optimistic. So, like, both of our grades make no fucking sense. Yep. We should almost flip.
I know it. Look, I saw this the other day, man, and it's hilarious because this is, Curtis, when you sent this over to me, right? Like to send our grades, whatever, for these position groups, I sent you my grade over. And later that day, I saw somebody, I think it might have been Nate Tice or somebody that was doing a big show, right? And they were talking about this tight end room, and they said, this might be the worst tight end room that I feel okay about that I can ever remember. And I agree with that 1000%. I didn't know how to like word it, but this is probably the tight end room out of all the NFL that I think on paper just looks god awful. I mean, like, just terrible. You look at the production. You mentioned it, Curtis. I think that Tommy Tremble is flirting with Ian Thomas territory. Like, I really just think there is no way around this. Because every single season, it's this, hey, he's going to show it. He's going to show it. We see flashes. It's going to happen, right? Like, it's going to finally happen. He was drafted in the third or fourth round. Tommy, I believe, was the third. Ian was the fourth out of Indiana. But, like, the same type of draft allocation, right, capital-wise. Skill set, they kind of were supposed to have the same thing where they're these big-bodied, strong dudes can catch the ball, but they could block. And it just hasn't happened, man. Tommy is a fine blocker. I will say that. And I always liked his appeal as a 12 personnel guy. He doesn't need to be your number one tight end. He doesn't need to be your pass catching weapon, right? He's not even Kyle Pitts as a pass catcher. And Kyle Pitts isn't a very good pass catcher. But like it's a difference there. Jatavian Sanders is the big wild card here for me. And it is the C- for me. And I'll get to Mitchell Evans as well, though, because I was also higher on Mitchell Evans pre-draft and thought that he was a great fit here in Carolina. And that also raises my weird expectations, if you will, for this room. Jatavian Sanders trimming down, getting more athletic. They're not going to ask him to be an inline blocker very often. That's not going to be the ask for JT Sanders. I don't think they have any interest in making him do that. I almost look at JT Sanders and see, you know who Dave Canales saw for a little bit in Seattle? Who I think I can see JT having a similar like effect as Noah Fant. I think that he could be this move tight end. I think he can be a chain mover. I think he can work the seams. And I think that he could be a possession guy in the red zone if you absolutely need it, or if you could scheme him up in there. I don't ever think he's going to be a primary target. That's okay. I don't think you need that right now in this offense. I think that the way that Bryce Young wants to distribute the football anyway, I think that the tight end position is not going to be a go-to for him. I think that he's got a lot of weapons to play with. And maybe not all dynamic weapons, but he's got a lot of weapons that serve purposes, man. It's like the toolbox, right? He's got the Phillips head. He's got the flathead. He's got a hammer. He's got, every single thing that you could want for the toolbox for him to kind of like craft up his art. Jatavian Sanders is just another tool in that box. But if him and Mitchell Evans can work together, and I think Mitchell is, I feel crazy, man. I feel like Bill Murray and Groundhogs, they saying this shit, but like, I feel like he's what Tommy Tremble was looked at as supposed to be, where he can be this good blocker. He can also be this solid receiver. He's a fundamentally sound player. Again, he's not Tim Duncan, Bryson, or Curtis, whatever. It was Bryson that said that. You called Josie Jewell Tim Duncan. That was crazy. This has been a nuts episode, first of all. It's been crazy. I don't think he's Tim Duncan, but he might be Al Jefferson, for crying out loud. He might be the same guy that can stitch you up down low on the block with some good footwork and give you 25 on a season. He's not going to give you much defense, but there's things. Mitchell Evans and JT Sanders, I think, can play really well together. And I don't think that Dave Canales has any interest in highlighting and focusing the tight end position. I think he's looking for his Cade Otton. I think he's looking for his Noah Fant. And why the heck can't JT Sanders and Mitchell Evans and potentially even Tommy Tremble, if you want to get nutty about it, why can't they be K. Otten or Noah Fant? We're not asking them to be Travis Kelce. We're not asking them to be George Kittle. We're not asking them to be Dallas Goedert, for crying out loud. We're asking them to be serviceable tight ends in the NFL. And I do think that they can carve out roles and be serviceable at their roles. But it is going to be a to-be-determined situation. That C- was the weirdest thing I've ever had to do because I wanted it to just be – I wasn't going to go F. Like, I'm not a Bond villain like Curtis up there. Like, I'm not – like, he loves to just, like – man, he loves to crush dreams, dude. Like, seriously, he's got, like, the Freddy claw that just comes out from under the bed and stabs everybody when they're sleeping. You're like, I'll just ruin your dreams. I'm not that. But, maybe I'm like the guy in the Strangers movie or something where I knock on the door and I terrify you a little bit. I might run away, though, eventually. Like, it's not that bad. It's not that awful. But it feels like the same thing over and over and over. So this is like the Groundhog's horror version for me. Any of that make sense?
Yes, it did. With that, though, the question, and I've kind of alluded this, I do think, despite my awful grade, that JT Sanders could get above that this year. I mean, without the injury last year, I think he was on pace to get there, honestly, if he hadn't, landed on his neck in that Chiefs game. And then, Adam Thielen coming back after injury. So I do think there's a chance he could. And I think it's even more likely with Tremble out. If Tremble starts the year maybe on IR where he's out the first 4 weeks type of situation, I do think Tremble can get really close and top that number. What do you guys think about that? I think he had like 343 yards last year. I'm not counting it all or anything.
I think if everyone's healthy playing the full season, I think Tremble's the most likely to go over 500.
I think that when I look at it,
you're smoking something. Go ahead, Ricky.
I think that when I'm looking at it, and I'm going to talk about the two guys that I just spoke about, right, in an offense for Canales. K. Otten in 2023 had 455 yards, 4 touchdowns on 47 receptions, and he was pretty involved there. Last year he had 600, but Dave Canales had nothing to do with that. Seattle 2022, Noah Fant had 486 yards on 50 receptions, 4 touchdowns. So I think what I see when I look at this Canales offense and when I look at what he wants to do with tight ends, they might see 45 to 50 receptions, but I don't see any of this being big plays and primary focus. So 500 yards is, I think, the peak of what they could get. I would be shocked if it is anything significantly over that. But I also think that you could see JT Sanders get 450. I think you can see Mitchell Evans get 300. And I think you see Tommy Tremble pop in with a nice Ian Thomas, 172 or something like that, right? So maybe collectively,
I'm loving
they
this
cleared
Ricky hate on Tremble tonight.
No, it's not hate on Tremble, but like I've got serious worries about the way they've worded the thing with Tremble with his back injury. I have serious concerns that he's not going to make it through this year.
I mean, they said he'd be ready for training camp, and now he might be ready for preseason, and now it's we've seen this many times.
They're really hedging their bets, man. Like they're really hedging their verbiage that they're using with Tremble so that they don't have to like remove their foot forcibly in front of everyone out of their own mouth, because they know that there is a serious chance that Tremble is going to deal with this all year. I think that that's what I'm looking at more. Is even if he's ready, this may be a situation where flare-ups happen on a consistent basis, and maybe he just doesn't see the field. But also, if he doesn't, man, I don't think that he's going to be back. I think that they're going to move on from Tommy Tremble. I think this is the year that they find out, is this dude part of our future? And I like Tommy Tremble. If there's one thing you can always set your clock to, it's that Tommy Tremble's going to try to hurdle somebody, whether he's got business doing it or not. That man is going to try to hurdle you. Oh, yeah. And it looks cool as shit every single time. So I give him credit for that. And he is a fiery player, man. He is always one of the first ones in the pile to pick up the running back after he is tackled. So, like, this is not me knocking Tommy Tremble, dude. I like Tommy Tremble as a player. I like him in the locker room. I think that he's a good football player. I think he's had really poor production. And at some point, dude, production matters. So that's just it for me. But I think that collectively they could get to 600.
You don't think he gets a pass for the way a tight end gets production is the level of quarterback that he has to provide that production, because he can't throw the ball to himself.
Right.
Tommy Tremble has played with piss poor quarterbacks throughout his career in Carolina. Even Bryce Young's first season, we all know was bad. And then the final 10 weeks of last year is when Bryce Young took that step, and we all believe that, the sky's the limit for Bryce Young from here on out. But Trimble hasn't had good quarterback play.
Yeah.
Would his stats look different if he was playing with a higher level quarterback to begin his career?
Yeah, that's a good question, man. And I love that kind of debate, honestly. Like, I think that's a really fun debate because it starts to get into the nuance of the player himself and like what they do well and what they don't do well. And for me, the underlying part of that debate is always, and I'm going to go back to Terrace Marshall Jr., because this is what Tommy Tremble reminds me of, is with Terrace Marshall Jr., wherever it says, dude, what if Terrace Marshall Jr. was just given more opportunities? What if Terrace Marshall Jr. had a better quarterback? Like, he flashed on a couple games. Why did he not get more opportunities? Well, he couldn't beat out the guys that weren't good at football. You know what I'm saying? Like Tommy Tremble played behind Ian Thomas. Like, he played behind Ian Thomas. I'm going to keep saying that over and over. And I'm not saying 80. He played behind Ian Thomas.
80.
Right? So, like, that's a problem. Is it not? That he couldn't beat out the guy that, like, was untouchable somehow? Steven Sullivan was getting looks. They were literally bringing in Steven Sullivan and Jordan Matthews to play tight end because Tommy Tremble wasn't the answer for them. Right? I mean, I get what you're saying, too. Like, better quarterback, better offense, better offensive line. 100%, man. I think he probably would have had at least 275 to 300 yards. Totally. But I think that's still it. Like, I just don't see when I look at Tommy Tremble, and I know, like, there was, who was it? Was it Matt Miller or somebody that said he had George Kittle as his comp? I think that plagues Panthers fans' minds because I think we saw that name compared to Tommy Tremble pre-draft. Once you see something like that in your brain, dude, there's an association that happens where you're like, dude, he can get there. He's got that. Like, he can get there. And I'm guilty of that shit, man. I talk about Nick Scorton. I mentioned Terrell Suggs with Nick Scorton. So in my brain, I could see it every single time. I'm like, man, he better ball out. Like, he better go nuts, or I'm going to look like the biggest stooge in the damn world. Like, I get it. But Tommy Tremble, man, when he's on the field, think about the touchdowns, right, that he dropped the Detroit Lions game. Just dropped it. Pinpoint accurate pass from Bryce Young. Dropped it. Does he need better quarterback play to catch that pass? Or does he need better hands to catch that pass?
That was one instance.
Ricky's doing my dirty work tonight. I love it.
I'm not saying he's perfect. I'm not.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying, if he had a quarterback that put him in that position more often, would he have caught that? I don't know, right? Like, if he was involved in the offense at a higher level and more comfortable catching a touchdown and having that opportunity,
and he wasn't a prolific pass catcher coming out, right? Like, they always said that. Like, he was a better blocker. So, like, we should have. This is something he should get credit for, Bryson, and I think you're right on this. He came out and said, they didn't develop me for 2 years. There was no development. And so that sucks. But now, and I get it, man, the Frank Reich thing went fucking awful. It was like the voyage going down to look at the Titanic, right? Frank Reich was like that guy. Yeah, he was like, hey, jump in this fucking soup can with me. We're going to go look at the fucking, heart of the ocean. Like, let's go down there and hang out and listen to Celine Dion or whatever. Like, I get it. Like, that all went so bad. But at the same time, it was still an NFL coaching staff, right? Thomas Brown, we all talked about him and his ability to connect with players. The tight end coach was the giant, tall dude out of Stanford, right? Or no, that was the linebackers coach. I forget who our tight ends coach was. But like, we had an NFL staff. And then this past year, again, dude, we saw development from many other young players. And we give Tommy a pass too because he's still relatively young in age. But at some point, dude, like, he's been in the league for long enough that he should pick something up. And I'm just not seeing individual progression. Look at his routes. He's not a super fluid athlete. He's not supposed to be. But like, that's part of it. His blocking, I don't think, took the next level either. When we had to question who was a better blocker, Ian Thomas or Tommy Tremble, and then we had like a mid-off when you go through all 22 of looking at their blocking, right? Like, you look and you're just like, that's a missed assignment. That's a missed block. That's a whiff. He's late on that. He doesn't know where to be on that. it's really difficult, man, to find a way to say there's not some individual accountability for Tommy, in my opinion.
Well, that was a fun conversation. Now let's go to a couple of the questions in the chat while we were here. And I think this is a fun one just to kind of divert from the Panthers talk just for a minute, because I think I'm curious because I don't even know what Ricky or Bryson's answer is to this. So one of our favorites on here, he always is doing a super chat. If you guys would like to do a super chat, we would appreciate it. But who were all your favorite wide receivers to watch growing up from the entire league? Much appreciate the content y'all bring to the fan base. Ricky.
Go
ahead,
Bryson, you go first. I'm trying to think, man. I'm old as shit.
Yeah, I mean, across the league, I'm not sure, but I mean, my favorite wide receiver to watch was Steve Smith. I mean, just his attitude, his dog mentality. Of course, I'm probably biased, being a Panthers fan, but it's a team I watched growing up, and that was one of my favorite players, if not my favorite player to watch, period, was Steve Smith. Being from Marshall, I went to Marshall for school. I loved Randy Moss as well. I think he was one of those other wide receivers that, you put him on a field and it doesn't matter if you double team, triple team, quadruple team him, he's going to get his, and he's going to make you look dumb, and he's going to pull down his pants and moon Packers fans. So I would say that those two were probably my favorites growing up.
You got any, Curtis? Do you want to go first? Because
I'll go.
Okay.
If I want to pick Panthers, it's Steve Smith, Muhsin Muhammad. If I'm going based off of growing up, at one point I was a Packers fan, and it was Donald Driver, Javon Walker, Robert Ferguson. I could go on and on. Jordy Nelson.
I was about to say, you're going to sit here and say all these.
I was kind of going way back, way back.
Yeah.
Jordy Nelson, Greg Jennings. I mean, you could keep going. And then, Bryson mentioned it, and Randy Moss always tormented the Packers, and he did that. I'll never forget that moon. It was against my favorite Packers player at the time, Al Harris, burned his ass on a deep ball down the right side in the end zone. I'll never forget it. So Randy Moss, while I hated him because he was a divisional foe at the time, I respected his game. The guy is one hell of a player. So those are probably a few that come to mind for me.
Yeah, those are good ones. I can't really argue with that. Steve Smith, obviously my favorite Panther of all time. Favorite Panther receiver of all time. It's not even close for me. I think one of my favorite receivers that I watched, and I watched him play a lot in college for the 2 years. I remember the entire debacle of he wanted to go pro early. He played at like a prep thing, and then he went and played at Pitt, is Larry Fitzgerald. I think Larry Fitzgerald was one of my favorite wide receivers to watch.
That's Tim Duncan. That's
Tim Duncan. There you go. Perfect.
Yeah.
That's Tim Duncan, dude, because he's one of the best of all time, but he never wowed you with athleticism, right? Like he was just so damn good at what he did. Randy Moss is a great one. I was a big Andre Johnson fan for the Texans. I really enjoyed watching Andre Johnson. Anquan Bolden was
was one I was thinking.
Yeah, man, I was watching Anquan. Anquan was so tough, dude, and physical. There was also small guys when I was younger that for some reason I was drawn to. I love Santana Moss. I love Lavernius Coles. Those were two players that I really just enjoyed watching. Calvin Johnson was a freak. Watching Calvin Johnson play was a weird experience because I was just he shouldn't be able to move that way. He shouldn't be able to run past guys and also be on stilts at the same time, right? Who else, man? There's Keenan McCardle out of Jacksonville, dude. I used to love watching Keenan McCardle play. Tim Brown when he played. I mean, dude, I'm
all right. Now you're dating yourself.
Yeah, no, I'm old. So I can literally go back. Wayne Corbett was a guy that I loved watching play for the Jets. Because
did you watch Jim Brown too?
Yeah, me and Jimmy went to school together. It was me, Jim Brown, and Sloan Ketterling after school firing that shit up.
Oh, that's great. Let's go to the super chat here. Michael Cuddy coming through. We appreciate you. Love listening to you guys while working. Keep up the good work and keep pounding. We appreciate you.
Cheers, brother. I don't know where you work, but I'm sorry that you're working at 10:27 p.m.
He's a police officer somewhere.
Oh,
Not sure which department he's in. But I want to end with this, and I think someone in the chat kind of even talked about this, maybe Charlie's latest comment, but we'll end on this. And Cameron Wolf was on NFL Network recently, and there was an executive that predicted the Panthers making a playoff push and having a top 10 offense this upcoming season. So we talked about quarterbacks last week. We obviously talked about and running backs. We talked about wide receivers, tight ends. So we're kind of through. We'll get to offensive line next week, but just based off of the conversations we have now, what do you guys feel about that statement from this anonymous exec? Is it Dan Morgan? Is it David Tepper pushing? No, I'm just kidding. But anyway, what do you think? Do you think it's possible Panthers make a playoff push? And do you think they can get into the top 10 of offenses in the league right now?
Shit, yeah. 17-0 is going to make the playoffs. What are we talking about here?
Bryson.
yeah, I think I do believe they're going to be making a playoff push. I really do. Being in a weaker division, I don't have any faith in the Saints or the Falcons. I'm not a believer in Michael Penix at quarterback, or really that Falcons defense at all. They've added pieces, but it's the Falcons, so let's be honest. I think it's going to be between the Bucs and the Panthers, and I think the Panthers are going to make a push for that number one spot in the NFC South. As far as the offense being top 10, that's a little bit of a stretch for me, jumping that high in one offseason. I do think Bryce Young is going to take a step forward. I do think T-Mac's going to make a difference. I would love for them to be top 10, but I think if I'm being honest with myself, top 15 is probably more realistic in my opinion. So I would say, yes, making a push, but offense kind of getting to the top half of the league, not really the top 10 at this point.
I'll go, I guess.
Yeah, Curtis. I was trying to switch it up, man. I always go second. I was trying to get
I'll start backwards here. I think I kind of with Bryson, I think top 15 is pretty damn realistic. Top 10 would be outstanding. Like, I'd love that. I think that'd be awesome. The playoff push, they better be making a playoff push. If they're not, we have problems. And this could be a very bad year if that's not the case, to be totally honest with you. So if they don't make a playoff, it's time. Like, we've hit that threshold. You better be making a playoff push this year. And that's where I'll leave it.
So from a ranking standpoint, when we talk about top offense, right? Are we talking about points per game? Are we talking about yards per game? Or are we talking about some objective, they're just a really good offense? Because when I look at it from a yards per game standpoint, right, from an offense, we were 30 yards per game away from being in the top 15 last year. We were 298 yards per game, which came in at 29th in the league. But the 15th ranked team was the Los Angeles Rams at 331.4. So, you're talking about 30 yards difference per game, right?
I'd put it, if I was looking at it, just to jump in, it would be points per game for me. But
all right, so let's look at points per game, because that's actually more favorable for the Carolina Panthers. The Carolina Panthers averaged 20 points per game, 20.1 points per game. That's good for 23rd in the league last year. The 15th ranked team, the Kansas City Chiefs, was 22.6. So if we're talking about the additions that we've made, the commitment to Bryce, and Bryce is going to play and not Andy Dalton, and that T-Mac is going to play, and that we assume Adam Thielen stays healthy. We assume that Xavier Legette takes the leap. We added Rico Dowdle to the running back room. We've got the same offensive line. We are hoping for a step from Icky. Look, man, am I saying that it's going to happen? Yes. 17-0. They're going to be a juggernaut.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I'm saying it's going to happen. I've said it all year. I'm not going to stop until we get to August, and I have to be different. But for right now, I'm telling you, man, if it's a matter of adding 3 points per game on the offensive side, I think that's absolutely doable. I don't think there's any reason that we can't do that, especially when you look at what we put up the first 2 games with Bryce Young last season, and 3 or 4 of the games that we put up with Andy Dalton as the quarterback. Those were not good games. But look at how they finished. Look at what they did against the Arizona Cardinals. That is what I would tell you to go look at. And look at what they did against even the Philadelphia Eagles, where it wasn't an impressive offensive performance, but it was against the league's best defense. And then go look at what they did to end the season against Atlanta. And Atlanta, I get it, man. They're almost as buns as we are as on defense last year. But it doesn't fucking matter, dude, because guess what? You play who is in front of you on the other side of that football. And if you go out there and you can rack up the points, you can rack up the yards, that's what you do. That is your job. Their job is to stop you. Your job is to score. And they did that. And they did that at a high clip. That Cardinals game is a great barometer, man. That Cardinals game, there's a lot of people that think that Cardinals team is going to take a leap on defense, especially, and that they loved what they did defensively to end that season. And we played them in what was it, week 14 or 15 that we played the Cardinals, and we basically sent them packing, right? We finished their season, and we put up over 30 on that team. I 100% think that it is feasible. That is not just my 17-0 thing. That is a realistic thing that I'm talking about. But also, 17-0, they're going to be a top 10 offense. They're going to make the playoffs.
And Ricky, you didn't even mention having a serviceable kicker as well, right? With Ryan Fitzgerald, that might be 3 points a game right there.
I mean, honestly, think about that. Like, it may even be 2 points a game, which is all you really need because of the extra points that you're going to get missed with old Eddie Crochet Shirt Pinheiro, right? So, like, let him enjoy his time getting ventilation on his con nipple. Shout out to Charlotte Hornets while he drinks his Mai Tai down there in South Beach. But I'm excited about this offense. I think that you talk about what Bryce says, right? That he feels comfortable and that they're taking the next step of mastering. That's what Dave Canales has said with Bryce, that now he's able to master some things. They're able to get into more of the intricate folds of this offense. Dude, if all we saw at the end of that season was some, vanilla, if that's the vanilla of this offense, and we're about to go in here and have some rainbow sherbet, maybe a little bit of, Rocky Road, maybe a little bit of fish food. I don't know. What do you like, a birthday cake batter? Something like that. And we throw a little bit of sprinkles on top of it. Maybe you get a nice little flying Hawaiian with T-Mac. I don't. Hey, what's your flavor? But we got a lot of options. It's like Baskin Robbins down here in Charlotte, North Carolina right now. They're going to put up points, man. You got 31 different ways to do it.
Amen. I think we're going to leave it there. We appreciate everyone tuning in. I know we had a question earlier that I do want to throw up, and Ricky can answer this for you. Joshua Andrews, is the next giveaway the 1,000 subs?
You betcha, man. Come and get those subs up to 1,000. Let's give away some cool shit. I'm not gonna say what it is yet. Just get the 1,000 subs.
Yeah, we'll get there. But again, we're very close. I think we're 20 or so away. So
it may be a very underrated Carolina Panthers memorabilia thing.
But yeah, please hit the subscribe button. We would like to hit that number before training camp. We're less than a month away from rookies reporting and then the vets coming in. So we'll be back next week. We're going to be breaking it down ahead of the 4th of July. We'll be grading some more positions. I still got to figure out which ones we're going to be doing exactly. But stick around for that. But in the meantime, y'all enjoy this hot, sticky-ass weather outside.
Man, stay safe.
Exactly. And until then, keep pounding.